Welcome to the 24K Life Podcast. I am your host, Derick Gant. And we have been hitting a few home runs. We have hit a few things over the fence. And I am here beating my chest because today is no different. I have JJ DeGeronomo. I just love to say her name. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was a kid and Geronimo was a favorite of mine. But DeGeronomo, not Geronimo, DeGeronomo. She is off the chain. Now listen, let me tell you something. The first time I talked to her, we were like best buds, right? And I know she was looking at me like, are you one of those weird dudes that's like hitting on me or got something ulterior motive? And then we both figured out, we were just buzzing. It was great. I mean, we just were clicking and I had to stop talking to her. I said, listen, I don't like to interview or know too much about people before I interview them because it steals all the curiosity. And she was like, I got you. Don't worry about it. But unfortunately, I've been watching her online ever since, but I'm still going to bring you an amazing interview because we have never interviewed anybody that's a light worker. What? She's written a few books empowering people. Listen to the title of her book, 74 Key Findings to Raise Your Energy. Not 7, not 4, 74. She is into doing her work. I just ask her. She'll come on. She'll introduce you. She'll come on. I just ask her. Listen, JJ, what'd you do this summer? She goes, well, I did a lot of introspective time working on a few things for myself. I'm like, man, that's what it's about. You are never finished. And JJ's going to tell us how to raise our vibrations. Now, before we jump in, I'm going to ask you to like, share, and subscribe because we are all about building the 24K Life community. That is a community of people that are looking to elevate themselves through learning tools from experts like JJ. And I love to say JJ too. Don't ask me why. But from people like JJ that are bringing the goods. Now listen to this. She's saving you time. I don't know how you look at it, but when you buy her book, when you meet her, she's saving you time because you can go figure out how to raise your energy level. You can figure out how to raise your vibration. And the first question I'm going to ask her before she even tells us more about herself is how long have you been at this?
My whole life.
There you go. If you want to spend your whole life trying to catch up and understand how this all works, go for it. Or you can jump in on the podcast. You can check out JJ's books. Listen, now throughout this whole thing, I'm going to flash how you can get a hold of JJ and her content because it's good. That's all I can say. It's good because she's good. And I don't know what to tell you. So JJ, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I told them that you're a light worker. I'm sure no one in our community knows what that means. They probably think you're some voodoo witch bitch. But tell us what it really means.
Oh, that's fantastic, Derick. Thank you so much for the invitation. Well, I'll start and let you know that I'm a computer information systems engineer. I spent 20 years in Silicon Valley working on data centers and technologies, but I just had this inner calling that I could not deny, and I would try to satisfy it by going to clubs and going on trips and doing all kinds of things, but really it was my soul's journey of saying there's more to your life's work than what you're doing. And I would say that I hit many of the corporate milestones that I had planned for, but I just didn't have that inner joy, that appreciation for where I was going because it just wasn't really aligned with who I really was. And so I started my own journey around my 40th birthday to say, who am I? What am I without this job, this title, this salary? What is my life's work? And am I even on the right path? And so my third book, Seeking, is really a combination of resources, insights, light workers, energy practices, and books that I've read to really work from the inside out.
Okay, JJ, we can't do that. It's just not allowed on the 24K Life Code. We can't jump from, I analyzed my life at 40, and in my third book, you know how much stuff you missed in between all that? So let me help you. I'm going to help you, help me, help them.
Okay, great.
Let's talk about this question. Okay. At 40, you're questioning, am I on the right path? You are been in corporate America. You're killing the game and you're not happy. So you're asking yourself, am I on the right path? Then what?
Well, of course I did what everyone does. I went to Sedona.
You went to Sedona and got one of those energy zones and went to a spa and immersed yourself.
I did a soul adventures, SOUL, and I met with multiple energy practitioners that were vetted and aligned specifically with this organization by this woman, Deborah. She actually started the organization because she too was a lawyer in Middle America and was just like, this is not my calling. And so she ended up in Sedona and now she helps other people. So I went to her and I did a whole couple days just meeting with people because I had so much inner turmoil, and leaving my job seemed like so ridiculous and just so off the wall. I loved my job.
About leaving your job, or you just
because I just felt like I had a bigger calling.
How did you know your bigger calling wasn't like being in the pulpit, evangelizing the gospel of the universe or something? How did you get to, going to Sedona? How did you pick that? How did you know what your whole was?
Yeah, so let me back up just a moment because I feel like I don't want to do anyone a disservice. This was been like a 20-year journey. So this is not something that happened over 20 months. So in 2006 and 8, I had kids. 2008, I needed guidance from women of how to keep everything going in the right direction.
Okay.
So I started a women's group, and that women's group is still growing on LinkedIn, Tech Savvy Women. And that was really the source of my first book, which how do you keep everything going in the right direction as a new mom in a high-powered job that really still aspired to make your impact in the world. From that, I just met with a lot more women. I started speaking about my first book, and I heard women say, how do I get promoted? How do I find a sponsor? How do I get on a board? So I collected all of that information, about 2,000 documents, and I created my second book, Accelerate Your Impact, which was the difference of working in your career and on your career. Another lesson I never knew about as an emerging professional. And once I did that, I really thought okay, 2 books, great career in tech, flying all over, loving it. I should be good. I'm good. I got all these metrics. I'm good. But my inner self is you're almost there.
Wow. And so your inner self said you're almost there. You met all these amazing people, and that led you to learn more about what was going on inside?
No, not at all. My life started falling apart, right? When the universe wants you to shift, it starts pulling the rug out underneath you.
Okay.
So the job that I was in got changed. Things were happening in my personal life. My parents were, my dad had a stroke. All these things kept happening. I was having tower moment after tower moment of things happening in my life. And I think it just showed yes, you think you've got it all going, but look at it. As soon as we pull this, block out, are you still as stable? Are you still as stable? And the reality was I wasn't on stable footing because I was so externally focused. I was so defined by my metrics. I so defined myself by my salary that I did not know who I was.
Okay, but you got it. Is it a secret? Is it in the book? Because if it is, then we won't answer it. But I need to know, how did you get from there? So you pulled out your Jenga block and you're like, oh, this isn't as stable as I thought, to I need to do some energy work. I need to find myself, spiritually in the work that you do. I mean, how did you get to there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I did what a lot of people do after you go to Sedona. I got a therapist. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Why do I not have any joy? Why do I feel so unsettled? Why is my life crumbling around me? And luckily, I had the right one, because she said, you know what, JJ, you need to go to some mindfulness classes. And I was like, this is serious. And that sounds ridiculous. So I just really needed, I felt like I needed the easy button.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is there is no easy button. And I declined going to mindfulness for some time until I'd visit her maybe the fourth or fifth time. She's like, JJ, if you don't go to this mindfulness class, you're not coming back. And I was like, wow, you must be really serious about this mindfulness thing. It sounds like totally goofy to me, but okay. So I went with a notebook and tried to be like, I got there, my teacher, I got my notebook and my coffee. I'm like so ready to be productive because that's what got me success to date. And she's like, what is the notebook for? And I'm like, well, in case I get a good idea or I want to do my shopping list. She's like, yeah, no, leave your notebook in the car. And I'm like, oh, forget it. I'm out of this class. You know, if I can't be productive because that's how I define myself, then I'm not going to sit here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot to learn.
So how many mindfulness classes before you really were like, oh, this isn't woo-woo, this is for real, and I can feel this?
Well, there were 3-hour classes, and I would say at least the third or fourth class that I actually was like,
you said there are 3-hour classes?
Yeah, there were 3-hour classes on Sunday during football, which I was not also thrilled about. But I was committed to shift. I knew I needed something, and I felt like my therapist guided me here that there must be a reason. There's something I had to learn. But I would say the third or fourth class, I was like, wait a minute. I really am not that nice to myself. Like I'm sitting watching my thoughts, listening to my thoughts, and I'm really not that supportive. In fact, I'm really pulling myself down every chance I get. I keep telling myself why I'm not good enough, why I can't do it, who do I think I am? And what mindfulness did for me is it gave me a front row seat to how I talk to myself, what's going on in my head, and what is really driving my decisions.
Well, we can end the interview because I'm telling you, that is what most people need to hear. That right there is what most people need to hear. We think, you know, especially people that are successful and people that have accomplished a lot, like I'm great. You know, I must be great. I'm positive. I go out there and make things happen in the universe. And then you sit down in three-hour mindfulness classes and you decide that you can hear yourself, you can hear your thoughts, you can feel the result of those thoughts on your body, and you decide you need to make a change. So what did you do after that? So you go through these courses.
So I went through 8 courses.
Did you go back and say you were right? Did you go back to your therapist and say, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry, you were right.
No, I didn't have to go back to my therapist. That was the greatest thing. I had like 4 sessions with her and I was done and I was on a journey then. I was reading at the same time I was taking mindfulness classes. I was reading Rising Strong by Brene Brown, which was really kind of serendipitous because it talks a lot about how you talk to yourself and how you position yourself and do you get back up. It is an amazing book and I listened to it twice, which I generally don't do, but it was really just like perfectly orchestrated with the mindfulness. And once I really got kind of a bird's eye view of my inside, I realized I had work to do. I really had to dig through my stories. I had to dig through my negative talk. I needed to understand why at certain times in my life I would pull back the reins, or what issues I had with money, or, you know, how past relationships have impacted my self-esteem, or even past bosses or comments that were said at work. I had to work through many of those kind of inner stories that were still haunting me or even holding me back.
Right. Wow. And how long have you been on the journey since? I'm not asking you how old you are, but I'm asking you, like you said, starting at 40, how long before you felt like, and here's an interesting thing about you. I didn't know this, so I'm not speaking this from like some space of knowledge. This is just from this conversation. You know, you were like, well, I need to figure out this information. So I started a women's group. I mean, it's not like you joined one, you started one on LinkedIn. So you are a fire starter. I mean, I can just tell you're like, oh, we're not gonna join a group. We're gonna start this group. So how did you go from these three mindfulness courses, starting your journey to becoming this great, you know, power that you force in the universe that you are?
I would say one step at a time, right? One conversation at a time. I started really allocating time on learning who I was from the inside out. And, I'm 50 now. So I started when I was 40 and I really started like hitting it at 2016. So it's been 7 years.
Okay.
And if any of you follow human design, which is a great tool for business people to kind of figure out how you work and show up in the world, I'm a 3. So a 3 is all about trial and error. I go around and around and around, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. And my books are really the best practices that I've gathered after I've done all the work because I want to empower other people to get there faster. I feel like many of us have so much going on that they don't have the time or the energy to do the work that I've done. And so I've not only condensed an amazing, list of books, practitioners, articles that I've read, but I've also put in a series of questions that I've needed to answer to get over a hurdle or get through a story that has helped me illuminate my path.
I like that. Illuminate my path. So I promised, and you guys thought I was lying, and I didn't know. No, I just kind of really thought I knew this was a shortcut. And what did she just tell you? This is a shortcut. If you want to spend painstaking hours trying to figure out where to start or what might possibly be wrong, I can see this like being huge on LinkedIn with so many professionals accomplishing so much in so many fronts, being the center of their family, most likely. I mean, most successful people were the core, the nucleus of their family, the first to go to college, the first to do this, the first. And if you're stuck after all those first, she's saying, hey, you can come check this out. So what do you say about the illusion of success? I'm interested about your thought process about that because you obviously have been successful on a couple different fronts.
Well, I would say that, success is an oasis, right? Success is something that we're striving for. And for many of us, it means very different things. But I would say that most of us think when we get to a certain point, we will experience joy or self-satisfaction or even a celebration. But what I've seen in most of my research is that the line keeps moving. And we keep thinking, oh, when I get here, okay, when I get here. And I tell a story about a girlfriend of mine who published her first book, and her book was late due to paper, right? They had a shortage of paper. So her book was late and she was getting her book that day. It was weeks late and there was no joy. She was like, I'm behind. I got to get these books out. I have a speaking engagement on Wednesday. I don't know if I have enough books. And I was like, just lay on those book boxes and be like, oh my gosh, I did it. And she was like, I can't. I don't have time for that. Now, at one point in her career or in her journey of writing the book, she thought she would have that moment of celebration. But like many of us, it just comes and goes and something else takes its place. And so I think for many of us, we really think we're going to get to this level of self-love, appreciation, and even joy. But the reality is it comes and goes, and we're constantly just striving for that next milestone.
Yeah. Why do you think that do you think that we are self-propelled to be so tough on ourselves, or is it something that we're all taught? Because I know not everybody's like that, but it seems like there's a large number of people, especially people that accomplish a lot, that never smell the roses, so to speak.
Well, I think, I have a whole chapter on perfectionism, and I feel like it's some of that bleeds into that question in the sense that we're so busy trying to prove to ourselves and others that we're good enough, that we can do it, that we can get there, that it just is a never-ending cycle of deliverables, action items, and, things we have to do. And for many of us, that is how we've been praised. We grew up in families that praised us for that. We got good grades. We were praised for that. We got the project done. We got the play lead, whatever it is for you. Like that is how our ego is satisfied. And so we're constantly trying to feed this ego energy, which is really not the reason we're on the planet, but oftentimes it's the shell that occupies so much of our time that we never get inside.
So what is the reason we're on the planet?
Well, it's interesting because through all my work, I believe that the ego energy is really sort of phase one of our experience. That if we continue to live in the ego energy, most of us do, a lot of people do, you get phase one of your life. But the whole goal is to learn to sidestep the ego energy in a way that allows you to get to deeper meaning and align more with your intuition and really work from the light. And I think that for many of us, we spend a lot of time in worry, anxiety, fear, and doubt. And a lot of that energy is lined with the ego energy. And if you want to shift to illuminate your path and really create a life you love, you do need to spend time working on the inside that allows you to get to gratitude, love, and appreciation.
Right. That's interesting. I think that you're so right. I just don't think many people know what that looks like. They don't know if they have the time for that. And what would your answer be to somebody that says, like, your girlfriend or your friend buy the book?
It just goes through how I move from ego energy to soul energy, and it goes step by step. And so whether you're dealing with relationships with a parent or your significant other, or you can't get around your stories around money, or you're an active perfectionist, like, how do you get to that soul energy? And I think for me, that was really the thing I had to learn, is how to shift that. And mindfulness was the cornerstone of my work, because it gave me a perspective of what is happening on the inside and where do I spend most of my energy. And so for me, it just, like, that's what I needed to get the first step in understanding what's happening. How am I making decisions? Do I like myself? What do I think about? What do I say to myself? Because it's not like you can just let go of that self-talk or that negative energy or things that try to protect you, but you can compartmentalize it.
Right. So what do you do to diminish like some of those really, and I know it's probably in the book, but what would you recommend for a newbie that realizes, maybe they listen to this and they say, you know what, for the next 4 or 5 days, I'm going to track my thoughts and my words, my self conversation. And they realize that it's brutal. I mean, or it's not where it should be, or even close. What would you recommend that they do?
Well, two things. So one, you just, like, being in the present moment, which is what mindfulness gives you the tools to do. You can actually be aware of kind of how you are talking to yourself or how you're talking about other people, whether you say it or not, you still have a conversation about it. And if you are mindfulness to capture that self-talk, you can shift it to say, I'm not going to focus on that right now. I'm going to focus on the 5 things I'm super excited about, or things that I have total gratitude for. And that could be something simple like a hot cup of coffee, money for lunch, clean sheets, opportunity to work on a project. So the first thing I would say is, like, understanding, like, what are you saying to yourself? Can you get in the present moment to see it? And then how do you shift to gratitude? Because gratitude, we can only live in fear, doubt, and worry, or love and appreciation and gratitude. And my goal now is to just really work throughout the day to work more in the gratitude space, because as I raise my energy, I receive equal energy. And so I receive amazing experiences like us right now talking. Like, we have great energy and we work a lot on that. And that is what brings people like us together. And for me, I'd much rather be in this space than complaining about my bagel or coffee that I got this morning, and attracting those people in my life to be like, yes, this horrible things happen to me too. Like, I don't want to be in that conversation.
So weird question. You said you had kids. You have each? You have boys, girls, or each?
Yeah, each.
You have each. And can I ask how old they are?
They're both in high school.
Okay, they're both in high school.
So
perfect.
Yep.
This is perfect. So you have these 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl. You, over the last serious 7 years, have been elevating your game. You finished the 3rd book, which is, I can tell, the book. The other 2 are more work related, which is great. When you are being who you are, like now, like JJ, right? When you're being JJ and you're helping your kids, you're talking to your kids, you're guiding them just through normal-ish, maybe with their friends, maybe with their counselors or their teachers or their dad or whomever. Which one is more receptive? That's my first question on the kids. Can you tell there's a difference between, I would imagine, I have two boys, but I would imagine if I had a daughter, she would probably be more aligned to these messages.
Mm. Well, it's interesting. I would say initially, yes, my daughter she's highly connected to her intuition and her just sense of self and the planet. So yes, I would say yes to that. I would say that my son he's a Pisces, so he's very open to things. We talk about all kinds of stuff, but he's not as outward about it.
Okay. So can you tell a difference? And I'm not trying to start no stuff, but can you tell a difference between your kids and other kids or their friends in the way that you've brought this into their awareness at such a high level?
Well, I would say for sure that, what we talk about and the energy that we work at is different, that I really try not to get caught up on any of the nonsense of being a parent of high school students. I got a call the other day to be the room mom for one of the things, which I didn't even know they did in high school, but I was like, well, I'll help you with the project because I know I'm not really good for long durations with no structure. That's not a really good working strategy for me, but I'm good at a project. So if you put me on a project, I'll get it over the finish line, but I'm not going to just be like this person. And so we were talking through that, but then the woman just continued on about all the stress of college and picking colleges and da, 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 da. I'm like, I just don't work in that realm. I don't stress about my kids. I feel like I got where I needed to go and the universe has got me. And I know that the universe has got them too. And I'm not going to spend my time stressed about their journey unless something major happens and I need to intervene. But I would say that we work in a frequency that life unfolds for us based on what lessons we need to learn.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Does your husband buy in?
Oh, he's coming along. It's fun. He's coming along. He's made a lot of progress. And as we talked about, the spiritual site came to us on Lake Erie, which is so amazing. And he said the other day, I almost fell off my chair. He said, I think the energy came from the land, the ancient tribes that were there. I mean, it's really just such a powerful space. And I feel like, it's just so crazy how we ended up with this land. It's just absolutely bonkers. But I do believe it's a healing center and people are going to come far and wide to work together there.
I love it. I just could feel that there was going to be some business deal that he came to you and said, babe, we've been talking about this and I felt the energy, I felt the vibe, and you should have saw when I didn't go negative. I could just kind of imagine this monologue between the two of you, because like attracts like, and either he's going to raise up or he's going to be repelled. And, man, you got the kids going, you got the husband going. So you are doing this work. I'm assuming you're the impetus since he's coming along and the kids are too young. So you're the impetus to this. How do you help women or people that really do feel like they don't have the time, for this woo-woo type stuff? And it's not woo-woo. I'm just trying to give some verbiage to what some people might think that are listening.
Well, I would say like me, people are not just going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I need to be more enlightened or I need to take that mindfulness class. Things happen in people's lives that really shake them to the core. Mm-hmm. So whether you lose your job, you lose your significant other, your parents pass away, something happens with your kids, major things will happen that are like your tower cards, if you follow tarot at all, that are going to be shake you to the core, that you're not going to have an opportunity to do anything but seek within, because everything external to you is not going to really bring you the satisfaction that you need. And I have a community now of light workers. These are people that share their light to illuminate the path for others, which is what I do on a regular basis. Is I work really long on just making sure that I have a clear vessel and that I'm constantly working through my darkness so that I can create more light within, so I can shine it like a lighthouse for others. And I will say most of them have been through pretty tumultuous stories that have gotten them to a place for them to rely on their own gifts and their own intuition. And they are here on the planet to help all of us. And I feel like this is not something you have to do alone. And you can literally start going to yoga or going to a meditation or going to mindfulness or reading a book or watching YouTube, whatever is comfortable for you. If you're still listening to this, it's probably because you're ready for something. You're ready for a new level of awakening, and you can access that in many places. And I would say just really lean into what is calling you.
I love that. Let me ask you another strange question, or out of the, I ask these questions that come out of nowhere. Have you ever been introduced to a book or a concept, and you're like, man, that is amazing. I need to go get that book. And then you found out you owned it. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I've had some crazy things. So in 1996, I was at the Olympics, and I lived in Atlanta, so I'd go to the Olympics, and I ended up meeting this man who's like, I want to take you to breakfast in the morning. I said, okay, great. So the next morning we met for breakfast, and he brought me to the bookstore, and he bought me 2 books. He bought me 2 books. He bought me Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and Real Moments. And he kind of just disappeared. It's like he showed up for a half a second in my life, bought me these books, and left. And Think and Grow Rich is obviously one of my favorite books. I've read it many times. Absolutely. But he just showed up out of nowhere and bought me these books and then left.
What do you think about that now? Well, what did you think about it then?
I thought it was odd then. I was
but what do you think about it now?
How many guys take you to breakfast and buy you books? I'm like, okay, thanks so much. But I read them. I read them right away. And I continue to read all kinds of books like that. But I would say now it's even more profound to me, because I feel like there are times in my life where guides sort of pop into my life and guide me in a direction. And I don't even realize it's happening oftentimes till later.
That's so dope. That is so dope. That is, because he basically tapped you on the shoulder and says, I'm just here to help. Right. And I'm sure a lot of guys tap on your shoulder and they want to hook up. But this guy taps you on the shoulder and takes you to a bookstore. You're like, what? And there's 2 books that you still remember and admonish today as being a meaningful part of your life. That is so, so awesome. I have been super blessed. And I know this is your interview, but I've been blessed. I haven't had to go through a traumatic, experience to get into the vein of wanting to be more, to be, to smell more roses, to do more. Now, I have had guys like you. Like I was telling somebody the other day, this guy came up to me, and I know him. He was a really, really wealthy guy. He goes, I see you and I follow you. This is years ago. He goes, you need to start reading some fiction. You ever read fiction? And I looked at him, I go, some what? He said, fiction. I was like, what? And this guy's like a self-made multimillionaire. He's telling me to read fiction. And of course, at that time, you're just like, if this dude says I need to read some fiction, I'll at least try it. And it was like a pressure cooker release. It was like you got all this energy bottled up on pushing forward and not smelling the roses. But for me, I've been really blessed. And I'm mentioning this in our podcast because, like JJ said, most of the time it is some traumatic event that jars us into some sort of introspective, movement. But it doesn't have to be. You don't have to wait. Just pay attention and be mindful, like she's saying, and ask yourself, after you say something a little off center, how does that make me feel? Do I really believe that about myself? And, if the answer is no, then you need to go buy JJ's book. Now, speaking of which, I flashed up your how to access you, JJ DeGeronomo.com. Okay. And for those of you that are just on Spotify or Apple Podcast, it's JJDigeronimo.com. Now, my question though is, where can people access the community? Do they go here also to access the community, or is that somewhere else? Because we want to know. We
do kind of keep it a secret. Yeah, I kind of keep this community a secret because it is mainstream. And, I like to talk about all kinds of things there. And that's why I put it on the Mighty Network. So the community is togetherweseek.online. Togetherweseek.online. And I leave it there and didn't do it on Facebook or anywhere else because I want those conversations to be protected and behind a closed door. And so Absolutely. little bit about it here and there, but not as publicly, because I still do a lot of corporate events and such, but it's really what I need to, I guess, continue to shine my light, to continue to raise my frequency. I need to be around thought leaders that are leveraging their intuition, that are raising their frequency, and that are using unconventional tools at times to get both their feminine and masculine balance so that they can be as big of an impact in the world as they're supposed to be. And I think for many of us, we need to kind of even out that masculine energy, because corporate and business is so masculine heavy that we really have to tap into that feminine energy to really create the power or the impact that we desire.
I get it. Now, it sounds like you work mainly or exclusively with women. Is that accurate?
It used to be. I think over the last 6 months, it's shifting. It's crazy, but I love it. I think it's great. For me, I think of us as humans, and we just all are here to help each other, and people like yourself and others. I mean, there's just a frequency so high that these are the people that we want to collaborate with on a weekly basis, because it's hard to go in the world and do your work if you feel like you're on your own.
Right. No, I agree with you. And, and it's not healthy. I mean, stress is just knocking people out of the park. So to find that inner peace, to find more joy, to find that you can control, you can re-energize yourself, to me is almost essential these days, or somebody's lid's going to pop. And we don't like it when that happens.
Yeah. And if you do nothing else, just start a practice of gratitude. And I mean, I do this while I'm walking, when I get in my car, if I'm making food, like instead of, I have to, just shifting to, I get to make food. I get to drive a car. I get to go to work. And I think for many of us, if you can just start with shifting to gratitude, you will be amazed how things on the outside will shift for you.
I love it. There's no better place to end than there. Hold on one second, JJ. I'll be right back. All right. I love bringing these amazing people that you don't have to prod or pry or pull this amazing information out. They just share it. Do you feel, can you feel her energy and just wanting, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple iTunes or one of the others, you got to go to the YouTube site, not to go to my YouTube site, but you got to see her face. You got to see her light up. You got to see her smile when she answers certain questions, because it is just pouring out that she is interested, intent, and set her path on helping others to elevate, to prosper, to live a more abundant life. And we're not talking just money. We're talking an abundant life. Did you hear how she talked about her kids, how she talked about the counselor? And we don't roll like that. We don't worry about those things, because life unfolds the way we need it to, in a positive manner. I like to say everything always works out for us. Now, with that, make sure that you go check her out. DeGeronomo.com. She is an amazing force that I think you should tap into. And like Think and Grow Rich, you're going to have her book Seeking on your shelf, and you're going to refer back to it, and you're going to maybe pass it on to somebody else. I'm Derick Gant. I want you to be your best, bring your best, leave nothing to chance.